to die.
The doctors giving her that death sentence took its toll both physically and emotionally.
I read 30 books on my disease, and every single book that I read told me there was no cure. So that was always on the back of my mind.
I think my mother's here because of who she is and the choices she made.
I felt, you will heal yourself, and that's exactly what I did.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. As harsh as it may seem, a single sentence from a doctor can not only change the rest of your life, but the lives of those closest to you. When Judy McKinney was told that her future looked bleak, perhaps as little as a few years left, she was prompted to take a conventional protocol that offered little hope. Doctors said this course of treatment might well be what would eventually kill her. Rejecting the conventional approach, this remarkable woman decided to begin a quest for answers that would change her family forever.
I was diagnosed in 1991 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The doctors told me that I had a disease that was incurable. To me, that meant no hope.
We were pretty devastated upon hearing that.
She handled it with grace. When she spoke about it to me, she was always showing strength, even though inside you knew there were times when she was crumbling.
When I asked them how long I had left, they said the maximum would be 3 to 5 years. The quality of life they could not tell me. The doctors told me eventually the disease would come back with a vengeance, and that eventually my body would just break down. And when I asked them what I'd die of, they said actually of the chemotherapy. It was devastating.
Fortunately, the McKinney family has always been extremely close. Larry and Judy raised their 2 daughters in a bustling household that worked hard and celebrated life to its fullest. Judy has always been a solid foundation for those around her. She ran her business and reared her children with dignity and grace. But now her imposing illness was threatening to strip her of everything in life she had dedicated herself to.
My field was fashion design, so I had my own business in my home where I could do my creative work as well.
She did sewing. She did a lot of custom wedding gowns, wedding parties, prom dresses, things like that. Happy occasions. She was a very happy lady. She'd wake up every morning with a smile on her face, and I had never met anybody that could do that.
I had the best life.
It was early morning on New Year's Day that Judy realized something inside her body was wrong.
We actually were at a New Year's Eve party only about a mile from our home. As I recall, it was snowing. Our host and hostess invited us to stay overnight if we'd like, and Judy said, let's do that. We got to bed, I don't know, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, New Year's Day, and she woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning.
I had some very sharp pains in my right kidney area, and it startled me, but then I thought my family had just got over having the flu, and my husband had just got over having pneumonia. I must finally be getting the illness that my husband and children had had.
The next day, she mentioned it to our host and hostess, and they said, you know, you really ought to check that out.
As a mom, moms can't be sick, so I never was sick.
It's true, she was never sick. She'd come up with an occasional cold and last 2 or 3 days, but that was about it. But this pain is something that was something new to her.
I ignored it for about 2 weeks, but I found that the pain returned every night at 3 o'clock, and it was really giving me a message that I had to pay attention.
When a local doctor first examined Judy, he didn't notice anything terribly unusual. Judy was sent home with a prescription that temporarily relieved her pain.
After the 2 weeks, I went off the medicine as I was supposed to, and the pain returned. So I called up this gentleman and asked him, could he please give me another prescription? And I'm very grateful to him. He said, come and see me again, rather than refilling it. And I went to see him, and he said, we need to go and have CAT scans made.
Despite Judy feeling well and appearing healthy, a CT scan recommended by her doctor revealed that indeed something dreadful was happening inside her body. Judy had cancer. Her lymph nodes were already swelling.
It was a shock. I looked well. I felt great. I met with an oncologist who asked me if I had noticed the lymph node on the left side of my neck, that it was swollen and it was soft and palpable. And I said, no, I'd never noticed it before, that I really felt fine, other than this pain in that kidney area. And he told me we needed to have a biopsy. Had the biopsy done. They discovered that I had stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They convinced me so much that my time was limited, it wasn't curable, that I took a death and dying course.
Judy's prognosis unraveled like a death sentence. The non-Hodgkin's lymphoma not only spread throughout Judy's body and attacked her organs, it specifically attacked her immune system. Doctors started her on a chemotherapy medicine called chlorambucil.
What they had discovered was the disease had started in the abdomen. It had spread all through and was covering other organs, so they could not remove it. It had gone up to the neck, so it had metastasized when they had actually done the biopsy, which I wasn't aware of at the time. Then they found it in the mesentery bowel, and they also found it in the head of the pancreas. And they told me that I was stage 2, and that it was fortunate they had caught it at this time. Within another month, they had me go in and have a bone marrow aspiration of the spine, and they found it in my spine as well. They told me I'm now in stage 4.
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a cancer of the lymphatic system, an organism that makes up a large part of the immune system and spreads throughout the body. So when lymphoma strikes, it can start almost anywhere. Then it quickly spreads, attacking organs, cutting off oxygen to tissue, and breaking down the body's ability to fight infection. As lymphoma spreads, the body's weakened defenses begin losing the battles within.
You could see the distress in her face, even though her attitude didn't allow the distress to come through. It was never spoken of how bad it was, or that it was the final stages.
As I began to take the chlorambucil, which was not supposed to have too many side effects, I got every side effect you could possibly imagine.
She was in a lot of pain and discomfort. She got neuropathy in her fingers and her toes and the bottom of her feet.
All of a sudden, my abdomen is very enlarged, and I cannot put anything around my waist. My daughter took maternity clothes that I carried both of my daughters with. Now I'm carrying a cancer. I had to walk on the sides of my feet, literally. Instead of putting feet flat, I'd walked on the edges of my feet because I couldn't stand the pain. It felt like I was walking on nails. It was really quite a shocking time for me. I had to close my business immediately.
To see all these years of what she had invested in making this business where people flew in from California to have things made for them was really devastating.
This was a lady who had worked with fabric and sewed ever since she was a little girl. And to see her that incapacitated was really tough to watch.
Her mentality and her spirit, it just radiated. It dominated, as it always did. It was always the can-do attitude, so she's the kind of woman that you knew if it were even the final few moments of breathing, there would be a smile on her face and a glint in her eyes that lets you know that she was grateful to just be here.
I knew that I had to get my family in order. We'd been prepared to bury my mother and father, but we had not been prepared to bury me. And in that time, on Monday evenings, I went to a death and dying course. Being in that class, surrounded with teachers who were taking the course just for CEU credits. And here I am with cancer in that room, and I realized I couldn't tell them.
To this day, Judy has never told any of the rest of the class that she had cancer, because she knew it would ruin the whole thing for them.
The very last class of all was to go to the funeral home. And we actually went down in the basement of the funeral home and actually saw all the equipment that they use in embalming people. And I remember going there and touching all the tools. I had to be so present with it. I had to come up with some answers. Something had to change for me.
Suffering nearly every symptom possible from her chemotherapy, her cancer finally went into remission, just as her doctors had hoped. This gave Judy a chance to reflect on her options before the disease would spread again.
When I asked them how long I'd be in remission, they could not tell me. All they could tell me is that the disease would probably come back with a vengeance.
She wasn't convinced that the doctors were doing the best for her. They were trying their hardest, there's no doubt in my mind about that. It's just that she just didn't take well to the drug, and she wanted to do something more natural.
When I was at the hospital, the doctor brought us into his, in the x-ray office and had us actually view my own x-rays. Where the tumors, where I could see the tumors before, now there was smatterings of the tumor. It almost looked like a galaxy. That's the only way I could word it. So you could see things were broken up. But the doctor said to me, this is not the end of this. This is giving you time. Just understand that at some point you'll have to come back and go on more drugs.
Judy was disheartened by the limitations of chemotherapy. She began a journey that led her to a book written by Michio Kushi titled The Cancer Prevention Diet. In it, Kushi explains how the right diet can energize the human body to fight cancer.
Sickness is caused by the wrong food and wrong environment.
Now over 80, Michio Kushi is one of the seminal figures in the natural foods movement. His macrobiotic diet emphasizes eating a wide variety of whole grains, organic vegetables, beans, and fresh seasonal fruits. Just when she needed the possibility of a natural alternative to fight her cancer, Judy found Michio Kushi's book.
And when I opened it up, it just touches me because I read an answer. I read that there was hope. There was really hope for me. That if I would stop eating some of the foods that I was eating, if I could change my lifestyle, if I could understand the message that he was putting out, that I could get my life back.
I imagine I probably rolled my eyes in the back of my head and said, oh, food is going to cure you and keep the cancer away, okay.
But he loved me and he said, I'll do whatever you need to do.
And we started our macrobiotic adventure. That was, almost 15 years ago now.
I began to look into finding someone who was macrobiotic. Michio's book had told me to look for a Kushi counselor, and I began to seek one out. And I found one in Boston. And I met with Dr. Mark Van Couwenberg, and he told me that my body had the ability to heal.
Lymphoma, up to that, I had had very good results, so immediately I told her, no problem, you can turn this around. I was very positive to her, and when I found out she had eaten gallons and gallons and gallons of ice cream, I knew she'll cure very quickly. You can make huge trouble with ice cream in that amount, which if keep eating it, you'll die from. But those problems are easy to turn around.
We took everything out of the kitchen and began fresh, and started to eat clean, and started to eat whole organic foods as much as we possibly could. Through his direction and the foods I began to cook, it just totally changed my life.
The more she did it, the better she felt, the more excited she got about macrobiotics and how less invasive it was than regular medical treatments that she had gotten before.
By eating the whole grains, eating the whole beans, eating organic vegetables, now really focusing on what kind of vegetables I put into my body began to do its own self-cleansing. It was a real drastic change to go from meat and potatoes and gravies and cheese. But what I began to see as I began to eat this food, that my body began to respond.
Her pain in her feet disappeared 2 weeks after she practiced macrobiotics.
And I could put my feet flat on the floor for the first time in all that time.
And all she had done was change her diet, and it made a believer out of me. I said, gee, if she can do that, within a 2-week period, and all she's changed is her food. There's got to be something to this.
My husband was in awe. He really was in awe. He couldn't believe it because he's thinking he's going to lose me, and it's just a matter of time.
Amazingly, Judy's new macrobiotic diet relieved her immediate symptoms, but she still felt weak from the chemotherapy. Judy also knew that there was no guarantee her cancer wouldn't return. The disease still waited quietly inside her body. She had plenty of issues to deal with.
My husband came home while I was in bed with cancer. I'll never forget him kneeling beside me and telling me he lost his job, that he'd been downsized, and that we'd have insurance just for a short period of time, and that we had to do something quick. And I thought, I can't believe it. Here I am with cancer, and here he is losing his job. And where are we going to go from here?
I went home, I pounded the pavement up there for a couple of months. We were in an economically depressed area at the time. The Northeast was not going through favorable times in big business at the time. Needless to say, the other companies that I applied for were going through the same processes that Raytheon was going through.
My husband is the one that said, I think we need to go to Florida. And I said to him, but you don't like Florida. You were stationed in Florida and it was very humid weather there. Why would you go to Florida? He said, Judy, because I can't endure watching you in another cold winter. So we did a very daring thing. We went to Florida and we found a place to live. And it was important to me to be near the water. The water was very healing for me. The warmth helped me relax, and my body, for the first time, wasn't so tight anymore. I still continued my macrobiotic eating to let my body relax.
The move from Massachusetts to sunny Florida was helping Judy recover, but she began to slip on the diet that had been keeping her lymphoma in check.
As I began to feel better and better in Florida, I got to a point that I got a little bit cocky, I should want to say, and thinking that I didn't have to be as careful anymore. And what I found was my own immune system began to respond to that. So I went to my oncologist, who'd been following me since I had left Massachusetts. He saw me and he said, there are several lymph nodes that are appearing in many different areas of your body. He said, I have to suspect that your disease is back.
Judy's doctor asked her to come in so he could perform several tests, including a CT scan.
I said, no, please give me a week. And he said, a week, what will that do you? I said, just give me a week. I went home and I ate 21 meals and I went right back to the beginning.
Judy returned to what had helped her in the beginning, the Khushy diet. Over 1 week, she ate only foods such as whole grains and organic vegetables. After 7 days, she went to the hospital for her CT scan.
And he looked at me in total astonishment and he said to me in almost anger, I think you were misdiagnosed. I don't believe you ever had cancer. Now that's an impossibility because the x-rays I have as of today in my possession show exactly how involved the cancer was. The food made that difference, and I could actually tell as I began to take each mouthful for that still 7 days. And I knew then that I had gotten a second chance and I was not going to push it again.
After the diet prescribed by Khushy saved Judy's life, she and her husband wanted to share their experience with others who weren't finding answers to their illnesses through conventional medicine. They also wanted to somehow show their gratitude to a man and a diet that had changed their lives.
What was most touching to me is when Michio Khushy came to me himself and asked me to be a counselor.
Now, as a macrobiotic counselor, Judy got the opportunity to help a woman with the same disease that had crippled her.
She had lymphoma, like myself. The doctors had recommended she go through radiation and chemotherapy.
She told me her story. She was an inspiration. And I thought, you know, I can do this too. I knew in my heart that if I didn't do this, I was going to die. She gave me hope. Gradually, day by day, I started noticing a difference in my health and got stronger and stronger.
She's a free woman. The doctor said she's free of her cancer. There's nothing else she's done for it except eat macrobiotically. What the Khushy Institute means to me is hope. It also means freedom. And it's freedom within yourself, or freedom within your body, or freedom within your choice. It also means peace. It's been 15 years since I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I know food does make such a difference in healing.
I'm just very grateful to macrobiotics, very grateful that she found it when she did, because it helped both of our lives.
My mom is one of the most generous, honest, loving, caring, considerate woman you could ever meet.
Change is very important. We often get stagnated, we get stuck, and it's very important that we listen sometimes rather than always think we have the answers. We need to take the time to listen to our body, to listen just to the sounds around us. Answers will come.
With Judy's health in decline and medical experts preparing her for her own funeral, Judy McKenney never stopped looking for answers. The news of her stage 4 cancer didn't crush her hope, it strengthened it. Judy's cancer ended only after she was able to shed preconceptions about medicine and explore new ideas.